football clubs groom young boys
Yeah.
and make them believe that something's going to happen which is not going to happen. And then they leave them with nothing and make them feel as if it's their fault.
So you played for Fulham, Wales under sort of 19 international, is that right?
Yep, I did 3-year scholarship and I was 19 and my knees were just so bad at that point. I just had to have a double knee surgery. My contract was coming to an end and the club just said, see ya.
Players you know that have fallen into crime quite quickly after they got let go.
Mm-hmm. Because of your circumstances, you're going to prison. And so just as your friend, I can't accept that because then it's used as like a rod to football clubs to say, we told you he's a bad egg. Actually, no, you took his whole childhood from him and then you left him with nothing. What do you expect him to do?
You feel a sense of responsibility on having it out
Massively.
there?
If you are released from a football club and you don't know how you feel or you don't know what to say, but you want to kill yourself, just send me an email. Thanks for having me, mate.
Pleasure.
Can you put a filter on this to make me look?
No, there you go. Okay, our sponsor for this episode is SpaceMade. SpaceMade offer flexible workspaces throughout the UK, and they currently have the following London locations: Queen's Park, The Strand, Fitzrovia, Swiss Cottage and London Fields, as well as City Centre Leeds and City Centre Bristol. To find out more, do check out their website at www.spacemade.co. And finally, I would like to give a big thank you to the whole team there. I really am grateful for your support you've given us from day one, and it really won't be forgotten. If you are looking for a great space to work, guys, do check them out via the links in the description below. And for any direct inquiries, you can email them via info@spacemade.co. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Hey, Max Noble, how you doing? Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, mate.
So just quick start, and then obviously we'll go into it. You own Certified Sports, and you obviously recently got a lot of recognition for putting together a short film. Would you call it a short film?
Yeah, it's a film.
Yeah,
it's a film. Chasing Shadows.
Chasing Shadows. So, I guess could you tell us how the past few months been since you've released that, and what it's all about, number one, and then maybe a touch on how you got to that, and then we'll go into it a bit more.
Okay, so I played football my whole life, so my whole childhood, and then I got to the age of 19 and I had double knee surgery and I couldn't play anymore. So I just was in this headspace all of my 20s. I'm 31 now, but all of my 20s where I just felt depressed. I was so anxious. I felt really uncomfortable just not knowing who I was because my whole identity has been to do with football. And having to explain that to people and for people just to say, oh, well, I wanted to be a rock star when I was a child, or I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a child. And to have to try and explain that when you feel so vulnerable is actually really difficult. So just as I got older, I just thought, I want to piece something together because now I understand it wasn't just me. It's all of my football friends have been through the same thing. So I wanted to piece something together that actually we can all look back on and say, just watch this. This is how I feel. So that's how it started. And then since the release, it's just got so much traction and I've just had loads of feedback from it. I've had 500-600 emails from boys that I've never seen, never met before, explaining their situations and their stories. So yeah, it came from a really dark place, but actually it's been quite therapeutic for me to just like put it all on film and say that's done for me.
And what would you say is the basic narrative of Chasing Shadows? Like what is it? If someone hasn't watched it, try to explain a little bit of detail, not without giving away too much what it is exactly.
It's a young boy or girl just chasing their dream. And within this football academy system, just the ruthlessness of it, the statistics that show that it's almost impossible for you to become a professional footballer, but how this carrot is still dangled in front of your face and how you're still told, oh, if you work hard, you can make it. And actually, for me, my whole goal is to just be able to implement some form of aftercare because the statistics show that you're not going to make it. So the fact that these multi-billion-pound organizations and corporations and associations don't have anything to support you after you've been released, your whole life has been taken from you, to me that's unacceptable. So that's what the film is. It's a child chasing their dreams and then all of a sudden everything is taken from them, and where do they go, what do they do, how do they feel, and that's what it is. And
I mean, let's talk a bit about your early sports career. Could you elaborate? Obviously you played for Fulham, Wales under sort of 19 international, is that right?
Yeah.
So where did it start for you in the football world, going way back, and I guess the journey from being discovered at a very young age to the exit? I think that'd be really interesting for people to hear because I'm sure it'd be quite relatable to a lot of people.
Okay, so I think I started at 7, just with my dad, just having a kick about in the park because my sister used to finish school a bit later than me. So instead of coming home, we just go to the park. So every day I was just having to kick around with my dad. And then I got scouted at 8 for Wimbledon. So I don't know if you remember old school Wimbledon, the crazy gang.
Yeah, and what, that's MK Dons now, right?
Yeah, the MK Dons, yeah. Okay. So I was there at 12. I got a 4-year contract, which as a child you think, wow, amazing. I think only 2 of the other boys got offered it, but actually looking back on it, to give a 12-year-old a 4-year contract is wild to me.
Yeah.
And then a year after that, they moved to Milton Keynes. So of course I'm still under contract, so it was difficult for me to leave. So someone had to buy me out of my contract as a 13-year-old.
Which seems crazy because I didn't even know you were allowed a contract at that age, or you were then. But is that still allowed?
You
still allowed?
Yeah, you still are. So from there, I had a couple of offers, but chose Fulham because obviously it was close to my house. And to be honest, I say I chose, and my parents chose. And then I was there from 14 to 19. When I initially signed, I was offered my pro contract early. So I left school in year 10. I didn't do my GCSEs. So I've got no further qualifications from that. And I was promised that, okay, well, by the time you get to 16, you'll have this professional contract. Didn't work out like that. So I did a scholarship. I did 3-year scholarship when I was 19, and my knees were just so bad at that point. I just had to have a double knee surgery. My contract was coming to an end, and the club just said, see ya, basically. Like, you're not going to play for 2 years, so we're not going to offer you another deal. So you have to go and deal with it yourself.
And I mean, there's so much I want to ask you, but let's try and get a decent chronological order. So let's talk about the knees a bit. Now, you were quite young and you had osteoarthritis, is that right?
I've had so much wrong with my knees, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think the first time I remember consciously having bad knees, I was about 12. So that was osteoarthritis, and I couldn't walk. And just to say that, in my mind, I feel like, no, you could walk, but I'd just collapse downstairs. So I'd have to take weeks off school at a time, and your knees almost just feel like they're on fire. Yeah. So that was, I think, the first time I really realised, okay.
And that was at 12?
12.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, 12.
Yeah. So you had this condition which was not necessarily connected to football. You just obviously had an issue with your knees in general, perhaps, or do you wonder about that, or would you even know the specific answer to that?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I mean,
because you'd assume at that young age it's probably just something inherent, so to speak. But
I think it is inherent, but also it's wear and tear. I mean, back in the day we used to play on concrete that had sand on it, and they called it AstroTurf.
Yeah.
So doing that 3 times a week for 5 years, you're probably going to have some problems. So that's what we were doing. So I don't think it would have occurred, or I would have had these problems if I wasn't playing football, if I was just casually playing sport once or twice a week like most other kids are. So it was definitely went hand in hand. And then from there, I think I was about 15 was the first time I went away. I was away with Wales, actually. We were in Malta, and I snapped my MCL. So that was 15. I couldn't walk for 4 or 5 months, had surgery, basically taped me back together, started to play again after a year. And then I just had so many problems in my knee, like with my fat pads, with my meniscus, with my cartilage. And yeah, it just all got to the point that I needed my double knee surgery, and that was with my tendons, because my tendons were just so run down that I needed to have knee surgery.
And so, I mean, this was what, 15 odd years ago, right?
I'm not that old, mate.
Yeah.
No, it's probably close to that.
No,
yeah,
but I mean, it's sort of 12 to 15 years as far as the bracket of when the knee really got serious. Yeah. Do you think today's medical standards are better from what you hear? Because obviously what shocks me about the story when I was reading it with you, mate, is that the amount of injections you got at such a young age, and that they were comfortable doing that when, I don't know, I've had small injuries here and there, but the main thing I've noticed that helped me the most was essentially physio and yoga, because it's stretching, and yoga seems to do the most good work to your muscles. And you know, people talk all the time about someone like Ryan Giggs, who got into yoga quite young, and as a result he had quite a lot of longevity. Were you ever even told about that? And that would be the first part of that question. And secondly, do you hear any better news now on the medical front?
I'll be honest with you, the messages that I've received so far, it's not better. So for me, it's like that point of medical negligence. I'm a child, so if you say to me, look, take this injection, it's going to get better, or take this painkiller, or all we need to do is strap up your knee and like it will go away in 3 months, I'm gonna listen to you. Yeah. And even if I get to the point where I think, I'm not sure about this, in my mind I know that if I tell you I'm in pain, I can't do this, and I'm out of the team for a month or 2 months, then what happens to me in a year's time, or what happens to me in 6 months' time when I'm told you're weak, it's in your mind, they're just a niggle and you didn't want to play. So all of that, I think, is what is inherent in academies, just that pressure on these young boys to make it. And if I can't walk, if someone says to me, you're not going to be able to walk when you're 40, I'd say, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just want to be a footballer.
Because the coach every word he says is gospel, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Because it's that point that you've touched on before in some of the articles I've read, that essentially they've got your career in their hands, really, don't they?
But they do, yeah. It's just not, yeah. They literally have their whole career in your hands. And it doesn't come from, okay, there's 4 or 5 coaches. It can, in certain instances, just be one man. So if you don't get on with him, or you say to him, oh, my leg hurts today, and there's a big game coming up tomorrow, who knows?
That's it. And obviously there's that, it's just that absolute desperation to succeed. So let's talk a little bit about after you got let go. Now, the first thing that shocked me, that frankly I think is fucking disgraceful, is the way they didn't even pay for your knee surgery. That blew my mind, because it's all very well and good, you know, there's arguable points with saying that we put them through an academy, we gave them basic education, we did something. There's arguable points, even though I agree with you when it comes down to it's not.
I would argue against you, but
No, but I don't, I'm saying it's arguable, I don't agree, but some people might say, well, they gave you basics. I agree with you, there's definitely a duty of care or aftercare needed, and we'll touch more on that later down the line. But just immediately after you left, you had to have this surgery and it wasn't paid for, essentially, right?
No. Do you know what? It's such a funny thing, because I didn't realize until I got older how serious that was. And like people educated me on what medical negligence is. So for years I've been getting injections in my knees from 17 to, or younger probably, from 16 to 19. And then all of a sudden it's my fault. It's my fault, my knees are too weak, and then I can't progress my career. So, I mean, again, I had no money, because you don't get paid any money to be an academy footballer. So the little money that I did manage to save or get together, I've had to think, okay, do I want to carry on my career, or do I try and do something else with it? And at the time I thought, no, I'm strong enough, I can still make it. I just need to get back from my knee injury. I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I'm going to work so hard. But years or a year down the line, you realize actually the truth kind of hits you, and you feel helpless and you feel hopeless. So, sorry, what was your actual question?
No, I get that. No, it's not at all. Essentially, so you got let go and you had this knee surgery and you had to pay for it. Yeah. Which is obviously just ridiculous. So I guess that happened. Then what happened after that? Did you pursue football a bit more? Did you have to try and get a job?
I tried to, and I mean for maybe 2 years. So initially we thought that the tendon surgery would take about 1.5 years to recover from. It took me 3 years. So that was already too long to be able to just go back and be like, hi, remember me? Can I come back? Or can you help me out a bit? Because everyone's just like, you're done. So yeah, I just received no help at all in short terms, no help. And I think I went to the job centre, which was, again, to go from where you feel like you're here and then all of a sudden you're at the job centre and you're earning no money. It was embarrassing. So then I just became a massive recluse, and I didn't want to touch football. I thought that's the only thing I can do, but I don't even want to go anywhere near it, because you get those questions. How's your football career going? Oh, weren't you playing for Fulham? How come you're playing for a non-league team now? And then I'm just like, I just want to become a recluse, and I don't want to speak to anyone. So I'd locked myself in my room. And then mid-20s was when I started to speak about this and think, actually, this is wrong, what happened to me. And what happened to all of my friends, reconnect with all my football friends, and it just turned out that every single one of our stories is similar. Might not have got injured, but it's still very aligned. And I took it from there, really. So I've just been trying to popularise the story and talk more about it. But I've had a couple minimum wage jobs, rolling towers in gyms, making shakes and stuff like that, but nothing that I've ever thought can actually help me, until I got given a leaflet at the job centre. And so it was for Burberry. And I just thought, okay, well, I work in a shop. I'm over this football stuff, so let me just work in a shop. And if I have to take 10 years to build my way up, then fine. And I went, and it was at the head office. So I managed to just blag my way into the marketing team. And I was there for 6 months. And then I went to the product development team for 6 months. And that was my only experience outside of football, clothes and how to manufacture clothes. So that's where the sportswear comes into. And that's where clothes just comes into it for me.
And then as a result, there's the evolution of certified sports, which is obviously... We'll obviously put a link in all the descriptions, all platforms.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, for a little bit of promo, and obviously the link to Chasing Shadows.
Get 1 million views on this or what?
Well, we might do if all goes well. I mean, you're getting pretty viral, so who knows? I wanted to ask you a question. Do you I want to ask you a lot of questions?
Go
That's
on,
a silly point.
Let's
Do
go.
you blame yourself at all?
I did. Yeah, that's a tough question because I did for a long, long time, and I think that's what the stigma that we have behind young footballers. It's my fault.
Yeah.
It's not the system. It's not your injuries. It's not how the coaches treated you or as a whole the academy system works. It's your fault. You were too weak. You were too lazy. You were too slow. You didn't come to training early enough. You went home. There were boys still here working hard, and you went home. So it's that whole, could I have done more? Should I have done more? Now I've not only let myself down, but I've let my friends down. I've let my family down. My dad used to drive me here, there, and everywhere. I'm not saying he was his favourite son or anything, but like he's so proud of me. It's anywhere I go, you're Mike's son, the footballer. And now I don't have that. So what do I have? What do I have to offer? And yes, I definitely did blame myself. And yeah, it took a lot of reflection and just deep thinking to realize actually what happened to me isn't acceptable. It's grooming. And that's another point, that football clubs groom young boys and make them believe that something is going to happen which is not going to happen. And then they leave them with nothing and make them feel as if it's their fault. So that's, going back to the film, all I want to do is create a safe space for people to be able to think, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
Just make it so normal that these young boys know you're not going to become a footballer. Just enjoy your time, enjoy the experience you have, and then you can take those skills and use them in other places. And that's it. Not have to spend 6 or 7 years in a dark room crying yourself to sleep every night thinking, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, I don't want to be here anymore. And so, yeah, that's
really where it stems from.
Yeah.
First, I'd like to, thank you again for doing this, because I really do care about mental health, and obviously male mental health in particular, obviously because I'm connected to it. But I found it very interesting, the parallels and what we talked about before off camera about how many people have this sort of fall from grace and they just don't realise what's happening, and then they go down a real shit path. And that's what's great about this what we're doing here, and the relatability of it. And that's the bit that I guess was really nice for you to see, is that people came to you and said, so I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Would you mind delving into the mental side, especially after those first few years? You talk a lot in some articles about literally hiding under the covers and elements of anxiety. I hope I'm not delving too deep, but there was elements of panic attacks at times. Now, I've spoken to other people who had very similar things. Now, firstly, was there a while where you just didn't realise what was going on, but it was just happening, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, bro, I didn't realise. I thought this was normal. I thought I had it under control. Yeah. I'm handling this. I'm choosing to be in my room. If I want to cry, I'll cry. I just don't want my friends to see. Yeah. I don't want my dad to know. So, yeah, I don't even know really how to answer that question, but I didn't know. Sorry. Let's go back.
It's all right. Take your time. Do you have a moment?
No, I'm not crying. I'm just thinking.
No. But listen, I mean, if I could help you with it, I think it's outrageous how isolated people feel, which is why I do this, in part. And sorry, I'm going to get emotional now.
Mike, the thing is, you're in it by yourself, and I think culturally, from where my family comes from, you don't talk about that stuff. Yeah. So it's like all of a sudden I've gone from here, this like shining light in my family, this footballer, and now I'm nothing. And then if I'm crying, my dad will say, "Come on, you're a noble." Like not in a harsh way, but we'll get there. You just have to work hard. He doesn't
know it himself.
And I'm like,
God bless him. Yeah.
Dad, come on, like you don't know what is in my mind, or I can't even tell you. And so that's what I wanted to do, just to create the most simple way for boys to understand and realize, if no one else, you can call me. And if you don't have anyone to speak to, and now it's to do with sport, but if in the future we'll create more content, but if you are released from a football club and you don't know how you feel, or you don't know what to say, but you want to kill yourself, just send me an email and I'll call you, and I'm not a therapist, I can't give you clinical advice, but what I can do is just be an older brother to you and say, look, this is what happened to me. This is my story. These are 20 of my friends that we can all speak to. We're all part of a group where we help each other. We speak about things. And that's what I wanted to do. That's genuinely what I started this for. And so obviously the clothes and the press, and yeah, it's great. But like all I actually care about is helping. Because to me, this football system is such an easy change. All the FA have to do is say, okay, we're going to take aftercare seriously. Tick a box and just say, look, we're going to have certain things in place so when you release these boys, they don't feel like this. That's it. It's not rocket science. I'm not asking to reinvent the wheel. I'm just saying you chose to take them out of school. You chose to promise them the world. So therefore, you have a responsibility to help them after.
Do you remember when you realised you weren't alone in this?
Recently.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do remember.
It's been that long.
Yeah, mate. It was like 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I think I reached out to some of my friends. And even now, I've got one of my friends, I don't want to say his name on camera, but he's the youngest ever Premier League football player. And he was depressed 2 years after that, tried to kill himself. So it's such an emotional roller coaster that you have to go on. But yeah, in answer to your question, I think the problem is that we don't know. We're not prepared. We don't understand that this is probably what might happen to you because football clubs don't want to address it. So yeah, it was very recent that I realised.
We talked over the phone once about how I don't think I've been through even elements of what you've been through other people. I think I'm quite lucky in many ways, but I can definitely, looking back on it, see that when you get built up, whether you're at a school or whether you're at an academy or whatever it is, and if you manage to just do well, you get built up and really, really told, you can do great things, right?
Yeah.
And that's obviously goes to your head because you're so young. And then I think I mentioned to you what was very interesting about when I started my secondary school at 13 was some of the older kids came to me and said, if you do the right things here, you can be at the top of the tree. Which
that's Mill Hill, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Mill Hill, exactly. Yeah,
that's what happens.
That's what happens. You can be the top of the tree, and what was good about that, it was like at 13, someone was told, don't expect it to come overnight. And I think my point would be is, we obviously get that built up again, and then you don't. The problem is you don't really get told at 18 or 19, okay, you're really at the bottom of the pile again here. You're going into the big bad world. Do you think something as simple as that would have made a big difference to you?
Yeah, just to normalise it, mate.
Yeah.
I don't think any young footballer is expecting it to happen overnight. You know the process. You know, you're 8 years old, you move into under whatever, and then you build your way up. It's not overnight. I've given you my whole life, my whole childhood, for you then to not pick up my phone call or to not even send me an email or to not help me when I want to kill myself. So I agree with you. I understand that in everyday life, people might think, well, you have opportunities, you just have to work hard at it. But I worked hard. I did everything and more. I didn't see my friends. I didn't socialize for years of my life. You still told me to be in bed at 8. I was in bed at 7:30. I was getting up at going to training 8 a.m., leaving the training ground at 8 p.m. for £13 a day for 4 years of my life. And not just me, every young academy boy does that. So we're aware of the pitfalls. It's just this carrot that's dangled in front of us that you do this because in 4 years you're going to be successful. In 4 years you're going to be playing for a first team somewhere. But
also, I guess what you always think you're the one who'll get through, right? When it's
you have to have that mentality.
You think you do.
People
regardless.
talk about top footballers. That's all you talk about. Oh, they've got this arrogance, this swagger about them. But when you talk about young footballers, it's a bad thing all of a sudden. So yeah, you have to have that mentality, that tunnel vision to think, okay, the statistics are low, but I'm here, and we're in the top 5, and I feel like I'm in the top 1 here, so I'm gonna make it, and you don't. And
realistically, that still may not be enough.
It's not enough.
You, in a couple things I read, you mentioned that black players were being told they had bad attitudes, and that you were left to eat lunch on the floor in the changing rooms and that sort of thing. Now, do you think that's an isolated incident? Would be the first question.
Well, no. I think it's more of a terminology in football. It's a very old school, old boys club type. Coaches take after other coaches, take after coaches that came before them. So it's just like general terms that are thrown around lazily around changing rooms or football clubs. You've got a bad attitude. You're lazy. Why do you listen to that music? You're so flashy with your earrings in. You do loads of flicks and tricks. You're just all pace and power. It's like there was something on YouTube recently about Tim Sherwood. I don't know if I could say his name, and he was talking about Yaya Toure and N'Golo Kante and these players, like unbelievable world-class players, and all he says about them is their pace and power. And then he talks about a player that isn't coloured or isn't black, and he says they're elegant, they're so technically gifted. And it's like, how do you get there? Because I don't understand it, but what I do understand is that those terms train people to be racist, to look at people in a certain way.
Yeah, so you don't necessarily think it's malice from the individual, but
You don't think it's
just
offensive to say,
terminology.
"Oh, kick the ball in the channel for the small black boy to
Yeah.
chase the ball in the corner," but it has connotations to it,
Yeah,
and
of
then
course,
it leads to people thinking certain ways. So therefore, I just think, especially in mainstream media, it's like those terms need to be addressed, and just people need to be educated on it in general.
Yeah, it's funny. We talked about this yesterday, just in a completely different sport, but like in 10, 15 years back, there's a guy we interviewed who was black himself, and he said when he went and played rugby, they'd be like, "Oh, you're a winger, right?" Straight away.
There you go, mate.
Immediately, "Oh, you're a winger."
Yeah, there you go.
And it's just it's it's not funny. It's weird because obviously you play sports yourself, and as a white guy, you think, "Oh, you're aware of it." And I think there's elements to it where I probably was, but there's definitely like you just didn't. I always wonder, like, for example, did you ever play up, or did maybe a white kid or a certain kid really say "fuck you" to the coach? Why are you talking like that, or you're making assumptions about, or it was just
Mate,
they were just so unaware it's impossible.
As a 17-year-old, you're not aware of that stuff, are
Yeah.
you? You might be aware of, okay, yeah, he's speaking to me a bit differently, and I'm not really sure why. But you don't go to race. That's the last thing, especially where I was born, where I was raised. That's the last thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
So to be treated a certain way, and I think there were points that I was like, okay, this is.
It kept happening, so you're like,
Yeah.
something's not right here.
And I remember there was a couple of us that we were just all labelled with bad attitudes. And I'm like, hold on, he's from a completely different area, completely different family, very different background, couldn't have gone to more different schools, speak completely differently, dress completely differently, but yet we both are the same. And I think I was about 18 then, I started to realise, this is... But again, I'm not saying that all football clubs are racist.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm just saying that was my experience, and I'm not here to point fingers and name names and say he did that and she did this, but I just think that people need to be aware, especially in systems where there's children involved, that people need to be educated on it.
Of course, yeah, because I know you also feel you shouldn't go too heavy on the background of the person or the so-called privilege. It's much more the individual sort of experience, right?
There you go, mate.
Yeah. Can I ask you, what do you think about taking the knee?
Mate.
Do you think it's useful? Are you with it? Do you think there's better ways to do it?
I'm for it, mate.
Yeah.
If people say this is what we're going to do, then I'm behind you full. I mean, it's not my place to say anyway, but if this is a stand,
you've got every right to have an opinion on it.
If this is a stand that people are going to take, then I support you on it.
And at the same time, so obviously there's been a lot of press about Wilfried Zaha. Are you also with him at the same time if that's his way, or do you think it should be really black and white, that you're a part of it or you're not?
I don't know, mate. I haven't thought about that, to be honest.
Okay, fine. Let's talk football again.
Yes. up the Chelsea.
Yeah, up the Chelsea. You're Chelsea as well.
Of course I am.
Okay,
mate.
brilliant.
What do you think?
Well, so that's what I said. Do you still love football?
Yes, but that's a point, is that I didn't for years. And as I've been speaking to my friends as we got older, they didn't either. So it's now I've got into my I'm 31. I don't know why I said late 20s, but I love it.
Still holding it. Still holding on to it.
I'll grasp onto it forever. I'm 22,
too.
mate. I'm 22. But yeah, for years I couldn't watch it because that was my association with it. Like, I'm a failure. I failed here, and these guys have made it. So I just didn't want to. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't want to talk about football. If football was on, my dad would say, "Come watch the game," and I'd say, "No, I don't want to." So yeah, I just didn't watch it for years. But now I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Again.
So you haven't lost the passion, which is good to hear, because I did wonder that a lot. It's like there's so much connected to it emotionally, and a lot of negative stuff. It must have been hard for a while. Can I ask, was there any... Mate, I hope this isn't a too sort of overly spiritual question.
Go on, mate. Go on, whack it in there.
But have you found any use in any mindfulness practices with regards to meditation or anything like that? Because I've talked to a lot of people about it, and a lot of people do seem to find meditation as a great way to help themselves in these more tumultuous times. So that alongside talking to people. So I just wondered if there's anything you'd like to shed a light on that particularly helped you beyond being able to express it.
In a nutshell, I've tried everything, to be honest with you. I felt like in such a dark, difficult place in my late 20s or early 20s to late 20s. I just had to try everything. So, I mean, it was difficult for me because after I had my surgery, I was in my bed for, I'm going to say 8 months. Couldn't move well at all. I was on crutches. And so that was my really downtime to think, I was in my darkest time thinking, I don't actually want to live anymore. I don't want to be here. But you think other things in that time. And I learned maybe as I came out of that depression to just think, how do I breathe better? When I'm having a panic attack, I understand. And mine were quite varied. I didn't really know why or how they would come on. But I know, okay, when they come on, just breathe, just relax. But I wasn't taught that. I wasn't educated on it. But to be honest, I mean, I spoke to a girl yesterday who's very, set up a meditation podcast, I suppose it was. And yeah, if it helps, it helps, to be honest. I'm not going to sit here and say you should do this or you should do that or that helps, but I think everyone's individual, and if it helps you, it helps you.
So that nothing in particular, but beyond...
Not for me, to be honest. I mean...
Talking about it must be huge.
Yeah, but not in a nice way, to be honest. I mean, like I said, when I made the film, it was very therapeutic for me just to be able to be like, blech, okay, I'm done with it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. But then the more I talk about it, it's not comfortable. It's not enjoyable for me to sit here and relive moments in my life that were not nice. But yeah, it has to be done.
Because what in an ideal world you'd like to be done with this, but you feel a sense of responsibility on having it out
massively.
there. Yeah.
Massively. Not for me, for other boys that are going through it now, and for my friends that have been through it and don't have a voice or don't feel comfortable to speak about it. Even now, I understand. If you've got kids and a full-time job, you don't want to bring this stuff back up. So I've had to beg friends to send me voice notes and tell me their experiences just because it will help other people. But I understand that you've been through something incredibly traumatic, suffered for years from it. Why do you now want to start talking about it in your early 30s again when you finally just settled down from it? And I think that's the perfect storm for these football clubs and academies especially, because no one wants to talk about it. I finally just managed to deal with it and get over it. I'm not going to bring it back up. And I think that's why it's such a massive untold story.
Yeah. You said in Certified Sports that it's us versus them. That's I guess what the mantra or the motto.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
Just with anything in life, I always feel like you have your them. So whether you're a footballer chasing a new contract or whether you're just a person going for a jog, you always have that voice in your head that's like, this is my them, this is the people that I'm trying to prove wrong. And that to me is what them is.
And you think, and that's a big driver for you?
Well, yeah, because I wanted to create a community. And so another one of my taglines is that I want to fight injustice in sport. So that's my whole point, that every year I release a new film, we talk about a topic and we'll fight it and we'll challenge it and say, why is this happening? So that's what I want my brand to be known as, a brand that it doesn't just sell sportswear. Actually, it talks about issues and highlights issues and challenges those issues for things to be changed. Because
you actually contribute some of the money to certain charities. Is that right, or is the plan to maybe create something of your own? Or
no. So yeah, we were at first. So when I first started it, it was purely and simply just to pay for a phone line so boys could call me. And just have it like that.
What's the phone line, by the way? Sorry to cut you off, but can you let everyone know what
the email address is I need help at certifiedsports.co.uk, but we've also got a tab on the website which you can report an injustice from any sport, and if it flags enough, it could be from cricket, it could be from croquet. If it flags enough, then we'll do some research into it and we'll challenge it. But yeah, that's how it started. Initially just as a phone line, like I said, just as an older brother type figure to give people advice, and as it's grown, we just offer different things. So the way that we're headed with this one is I've got a lawyer to help write what this safeguarding in sport should look like and what aftercare programs and platforms should look like. So that's where the percentage is going on this campaign.
Okay, so you really, obviously, no surprise, but you'd like to actually perhaps implement certain practices, like you said, so the aftercare element and there's a true guideline to what safeguarding care is.
Because that's the problem now, is that no one audits them. So a football club will say to you, I won't say who it is, but I've been told from a sports lawyer that, this football club does it perfectly, have a look into them. And then just coincidentally, 4 days later, they email me, the head of safeguarding, saying, we don't know what to do with these boys. So can you help us? Can you advise us? What role would you like to play? So I'm like, how does that... Yes, it's a piece of paper. Yes, the FA say this is supposed to happen. The football clubs can say all they want. We do it. And maybe they'll highlight one boy in 15 years that's gone on to do well. But actually, where's the audit? Where's the people making sure that these boys are taken care of? Because success rate's so low in academies. And I don't think any boy that goes through is just automatically expecting to become a professional footballer. But when you don't, you should be able to expect some help. or you should be able to know what's going to happen to you. And now it's just like this big black hole of nothingness. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going to be. I don't have any job opportunities, no internships, no courses from the club. It's just like, okay, you're not going to make it here, so yeah.
So in an ideal world, what would be the basics given to someone who's been let go, or at least, or what would be the basic education provided whilst they're there?
I can't get into that, Mikey, mate.
Why is that?
No, I just don't want. It's a bit premature.
Okay.
I'm just having conversations, privately.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So,
that's fine. But obviously, it has to be a high standard. You at this point, you're not even sure what that should be.
No, I know. Yeah, we know. But the point is that none of these things are audited. So again, there are certain things that they're supposed to take care of you after. Psychologically, they're supposed to help you. After they've released you, they're supposed to give you advice and supposed to let you know where to go. It's not just like here's a Samaritan's number, see you later. It needs to be more, and they're supposed to do more, but they don't do more. So it's not a case of me sitting here saying they don't understand or they don't know what's going on. It's a case of saying there's no money in it, so they just don't bother.
Is there anything better than playing sport in front of hundreds of thousands of people?
I don't know.
What was it? You must have played in front of big crowds, because I remember even playing in front of a few people. It blew my mind how much of a thrill
this is the myth I think that people have with academy football. It's like,
really?
You're not a famous footballer. You paid no money. You're not treated particularly well, and there's no big crowds. I mean, I think I played for the World's under-21s against Germany, and I think there was like 4,000 people there.
Yeah,
but
that's a lot of people, don't you think? I mean,
for me, it was a load of people. Yeah, but it's not a stadium full of people, is it?
But that's a different level of experience. Like, did you remember thinking like this is the best thing I've done, sort of thing?
No. It's just pressure.
Too much pressure.
I think. I mean, for me anyway, there's a lot of pressure in those situations.
No, it's interesting because I would assume it's just an absolute like euphoric experience. But like you said, you had so much pressure on yourself. Obviously, you're probably worried about your knee and all sorts of things. It's just a different experience. How do I express this? The power of like coaches and managers is something that's come up quite a lot. You've obviously, I'm sure you've seen elements of this documentary about football. Is it Football's Darkest Secrets? With regards to the abuse and the grooming and that sort of thing. Do you know about that?
No. There was a Sheldon inquiry.
No, I think it's connected to that. But literally a couple of weeks ago, it was a big reveal about essentially all these younger players, especially in the 70s and 80s.
Sexually abused.
Yeah, who sexually abused.
Sheldon inquiry,
Would you be willing to touch on if you ever thought you saw anything like that?
No. I didn't.
You didn't?
I didn't. However, there was a lot of inappropriate moments, I would say. As an adult, I wouldn't allow my son to go through. But back then, you just think, it's a bit of banter, isn't it? Or it's normal, or this is just what happens. But nothing to the extent that those boys had to go through. So,
And do you think it was blindsided so much simply because it's their child? They're the gateway to success.
It's like in any power structure, isn't it? It's like if you're trying to do anything you can to impress someone, you might let something slide, or you might let something go as a child because you think, oh well, I'm desperate. I need to do this not just for me but for my family. So that's your mindset at that time.
Yeah. So what's the big plan for Certified Sports?
Oh, how long have you got, mate?
Well, a couple hours. So
Yeah. No, literally just to be a brand that challenges injustice in sport. I mean, I just want to do something. I want to have an effect and have an impact and actually be able to create change where I see the need for change, not just where I see it, but where we see it. I don't just want to be a brand that just sells clothes, because to me you don't have an impact. So even without the clothes, that would be my messaging forever, is that actually these things need to be addressed. Your old boys clubs that you have through sports and other industries, I want to attack them, and I want to make change and create change in those.
Do you think what you're doing is quite a big fuck you to football clubs?
Not football clubs, no. I mean, it depends which way you look at it. For me, I'm just raising an issue. I'm not saying you've done this, you've done that. I'm just literally raising an issue and saying, how are you going to answer it? So I'm not saying fuck you. I'm just saying this is unacceptable. So what are you going to do about it? You have no excuse to not do it. It's 2021. We understand about males' mental health, especially in young boys. You understand about it. So why are you not doing anything about it?
Yeah. So I just thought it was very interesting that. Let's just touch on some wider questions. Do you is certified sports your only mission at the moment? Is there other missions connected to it or completely different like you'd like to get into?
No, that's it, mate.
Yeah,
That's my focus.
and that's the sole thing. And with regards to the merchandise or the clothing, is there plans for particular lines that go to particular causes beyond what you're doing at the moment?
So I mean, essentially, I want to make all black sportswear because I've always worn black everything. Even when coloured boots came out, I wanted to be that guy that's wearing black on black boots. So that's what I want my sportswear to be: technical sportswear, black on black. So that's what we've done now. In the new season of stuff we've got coming out, it's plastic bottles collected from the oceans. So that's a big thing. And then we will do drops throughout the year that will support communities in certain ways. I don't want to go into too much detail, but we'll have one drop a year which will focus on, as we're focusing on now, academy boys and what happens to them when they're released. And then throughout the year we'll drop capsule collections that will be to support knife crime in London or other community issues.
You've talked a lot about players that have fallen into crime quite quickly after they got let go. Could you? Why do you think that's the case?
Mate, young boys backed into a corner with no opportunities, no courses, no jobs. Where do you expect them to go? And I think I've seen that firsthand. I mean, I was privileged enough to go to a private school. Then all of my football friends were from a completely different world to me. So these are the nicest boys. I spend the weekends at their house. Their family is my family. We're just from two different places. And now, because of your circumstances, you're going to prison. And so just as your friend, I can't accept that, because then it's used as like a rod to football clubs to say, we told you he was a bad egg. We told you that he was going to be trouble. So that's why we let him go. And it's actually, no, you took his whole childhood from him and then you left him with nothing. What do you expect him to do? So for me, that's what I wanted to do. Just tell the story of my friends who I love. And I know that if given the right opportunity, they would have done incredible things in their life, but they weren't given that opportunity.
If you could, I hope you can pinpoint this a little bit. If you could just make one statement to younger guys who are in the academy now, as a warning or a piece of personal advice, is there something you could say in particular that you'd like them to take on?
It's a difficult one for me because knowing what I know, I would say don't do it.
Really?
The couple years of enjoyment that I had in those environments were not worth the 10, 12 years of depression and anxiety and PTSD and wanting to kill myself. It wasn't worth it. But I understand, as young footballers, you think, I'm going to make it. You're in that mindset to say, I'll be the one. I'll be the one in a million. And you're not going to be. So I don't have a simple, easy solution to say, educate yourself. Or be more aware that you're probably not going to make it, because in that moment you have to be fully focused on everything. And that's a skill, to be fully focused and to put all your eggs in one basket and to work incredibly hard towards a goal that you know is probably not realistic. To me, that's a skill that can be transferred into other things. But again, if I could go back and tell myself, or go back and explain to myself what I'm about to go through, then I wouldn't do it.
Would there be anything you'd implore parents to be quite conscious of?
Well, it comes down to football clubs educating parents, because I think a lot of the pressure is heaped on the parents that, oh, you force them to do it, or you put too much pressure on them at an early age. Whereas actually they were also promised something, made false promises. So my dad drove me everywhere, did everything for me. And now all of a sudden he's getting blamed because I didn't make it. Yeah. So I think that parents need to be educated and to be able to see what might happen to their children and the signs of depression or the signs of anxiety, especially in certain communities or cultures. But in essence, I don't think it comes down to them. It's not their fault. It's not their problem. Well, it is their problem, but it shouldn't be their issue to have to deal with it. It has to be the football clubs.
Did your dad ever...
You can call him Big Mike.
Big Mike, like me, Big Mike. Yeah. Did your dad ever get angry at you about it?
Yes. Yeah, a lot. Again, I don't blame him, but the conversations that we're having, I mean, I don't want to point fingers, but the environment that we were in, I didn't know whether to tell my dad, because either two things are going to happen. He's going to come in, he's going to kick off. That's going to cause trouble for me, or they're going to release me. Or what did happen was he'd come in, they would say, Max is lazy, he's got a bad attitude, he doesn't want to listen, he doesn't want to learn, he thinks he knows everything. And then my dad would look at me and say, why are you doing that? I put so much time and effort into doing everything for you and you can't even listen. And it's like, as a child, I didn't know how to express or explain to him that that's not true, Dad. So as two adults in a room telling my dad something, of course he's going to listen to them.
Yeah, of course.
Not of course, but like they're expressing themselves.
Yeah, he's going to take their point of view quite relevant.
And what do I say? I was like, oh, Dad, that's not true. I'm not like that. And then he starts to see things in me that he's like, oh, you don't want it enough, or I've done this for you. And so it became such a difficult time. And luckily, like my dad's my best friend, so everything worked out fine. But there was definitely a period of time that there was some animosity.
There was almost quite resentment from his side, yeah. And what, obviously, just since in adult life, you've talked it out and.
It was tough to talk it out, but
tell me about it. I mean, I think every guy in some capacity has a bit of a clash with their dad at one point.
The truth is, I was also resentful of him because as a child, I don't make these decisions. My dad's making them for me.
Yeah.
So then there's certain situations that I've had to go through because of decisions that he's made. That's a tough conversation to have when he's, in his eyes, given everything to me, and he has. But as someone who was depressed and in a really dark place, I probably took it out on him when I shouldn't have. But that's a story that I'm told constantly from young boys that have been released from football clubs.
The relationship with the parent, or particularly
just
the dad.
A wedge just driven between them. So now you're not only alone because you've been released from the football club, but you're alone because you feel isolated from your family because you blame them partly and they blame you. So it's just this whole balance that is just...
And you probably heard of those sort of rifts lasting quite a long time.
Yeah.
Have you ever been prescribed antidepressants or anything of that nature to help you out?
Yes, but I didn't take them.
Yeah.
I think culturally this is where it comes in as well. It's like my dad wouldn't even let me take tablets when I was growing up. It's like, it's not for us. Like we're fine. We could soldier through it. I would never have wanted to take antidepressants, but I was definitely at a point prescribed them or told that I'd probably need them.
And so in a way, I know people who've taken antidepressants and I don't see much use in them. I think a small dose, perhaps at the right time is, and listen, I haven't experienced it myself, so I don't know. But from what I can see, people get hooked on them like most pharmaceuticals, and it really goes down a bad track, and often it makes their chemical balance so imbalanced that it's really just a sort of negative spiral. So you quite glad you never took any of that?
Yeah, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's not the answer. You can't just say to these boys, these thousands of boys that are released a year, like, oh, we don't want to deal with it. So here's some antidepressants, like, see you later. It's not, to me, it's not the answer. It's like there are steps before that can be taken to help people, to guide people, to make it almost normal so you don't feel like such a failure when you're released. And then after there's even easier steps that can be put in place to protect them from going through those things.
Yeah, I mean, talking on the medical side, so they gave you injections pre-16, right? You were younger than that?
Nah, I don't think I was pre-16. I was 16.
Were you ever given any form of sort of... Basically what I'm trying to say is...
Say it with your chest, bro.
Yeah, I'm trying to. But to be honest, mate, because a lot of this matters to me a lot, especially on the male mental health. I hate how people feel isolated, so it's quite a big importance to me, which is why I appreciate what you're doing. But were you ever given any form of pill, injection, whatever, under the age of 16 without parental guidance?
Not under the age of 16.
Do you know?
Definitely from 16 to 19, I 100% was. And also, I think that's when you say without parental consent and under 16, you're not in the football club full time. So that to me is still unacceptable. Yes, you might categorize me in some cultures as an adult from 16, but you still can't blackmail me into or bully me or make me feel as if something's going to happen to me if I don't take these pills or if I don't get injections in my knees, because the consequences show later you don't care for me, you don't help me. So no, I haven't ever heard of children getting prescribed them under 16, but I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
I mean, you say you're not an adult at 16. I'm not sure if I'm an adult now. So there you go.
You're about 48.
Yeah. Do I look 48? No, I'm joking.
You look 12.
I look 12.
Your beard's not connected.
Yeah, I know. Well, my adolescence just didn't really go, mate. So there's a few sort of more quickfire questions and stuff we've got for you. Firstly, what is your best quality?
Oof. Wow. Putting good people in good places. I think that's my only skill when it comes to business. I mean, I'm not super knowledgeable at things, but I'll find the perfect person to go in to that spot.
What was the worst day of your life so far?
Jesus Christ, I've had a few, mate. I couldn't tell you the worst day, but probably realizing that my football career is done. And there was a particular night that I thought, okay, it's done. And I cried all night, and it wasn't a good time.
Best day of your life so far?
Mate, these aren't quick-fire questions. How am I going to answer that?
Well, I'm
31.
Yeah, no, but listen, I roll them out. There's particular questions I'd like to ask everyone because I think, like I said, I want it to be so relatable, and if you can express some sort of emotion, it normally will hit someone else and actually help them, which is
the best day of my life,
it's
mate.
Important. And take your time, genuinely.
I'll be honest with you, I don't actually know, and I don't mean that in a way that I've had a terrible life, because I haven't at all. But I couldn't tell you the best day of my life.
Neither could I.
That's a difficult question, isn't it?
Yeah, I could tell you periods where I was absolutely in moments of euphoria, which are normally in my teens, but I couldn't pick a best day, but some people really can, which is what I find interesting about it. No,
not me. Not me.
Okay.
It's not too quick, these are they?
No. Well, it's a script. It's a script. Down,
Sammy, mate.
No. It's good to have the pause for dramatic effect, I guess. What is happiness to you?
Being comfortable in my own skin, in my own mind. I don't question myself anymore. I don't think things are happening that aren't happening. And I spent a long time being anxious and over analysing and over questioning things. And now if something comes into my mind, I know it's just for now and I can just breathe it out. And that to me is the path to happiness.
How...
and money.
I was going to say, how important is money to you?
Mate, I've had no money. I mean, I've had periods where I've had a lot of money, but then I've also had no money the majority of my 20s when most of my friends are working and getting money. So it's not important at all. To me, what's important is to tell this story. And if money comes, amazing. If not, then at least I can leave something that will change people's lives.
And is that, I mean, that's always a thing I talk about. Would you say you're combining what you care about with your skills and something that could perhaps have a greater offering to other people?
It's the only skill I have. Like I said, when I left, apart from Burberry, what am I going to do?
Your only skill being what?
Fashion. Clothes, okay. Sorry. That's the only route that I was presented with after football. So it's like, if I can't play football anymore, what do I do?
Favourite book?
I've got a lot of favourite books actually. But
you can do a top three if you wish.
My favourite is Starting With Why. I think we spoke about this before by Simon Sinek. That was the first book that made me realise, okay, what's your why? Why are you doing this? And then that made me think, okay, let me take this story that I've been trying to tell and not know how to tell and do it through my other passion.
Favourite movie?
Training Day.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's one of my top three as well.
That was easy.
Yeah, so...
Or American Gangster.
Okay. It's also fucking great. Final question is, and just before we do finish, thank you again for doing it. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a great conversation. What do you hope for on your deathbed? And what I mean by that is, what do you hope you can look back on fondly when this is all done? Change.
Like I said, I just want to change things. I don't want to talk. I don't want people to think, oh, you just created this webinar or this seminar or this focus group. I actually want to create change.
Okay. Brilliant. Thanks for doing it.
Cheers for having me, mate.
Pleasure.
Can you put a filter on this to make me look...
No, we're raw, mate.